Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, and today we're going to be ringing in the new year, talking about Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. If anybody's new to the channel, definitely make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out on all of our social medias, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts as well. Drop in and leave us a good review. So today we're going to be talking about Glass Onion. This movie released at the tail end of 2022 here, exclusively on Netflix. This is a sequel of 2019's Knives Out, which I was actually a pretty big fan of. That was also directed by Rian Johnson. If you don't know who Rian Johnson is, he's the guy that went out and directed that one of the worst Star Wars movies in the whole series, which was The Last Jedi. But we really don't talk about that one very often. But he also directed like the movie Looper, I believe, that had Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis in it. I'm not sure if I saw that one. If I have, it's been quite a long time. But he's also directed some TV stuff like Breaking Bad and what have you. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Rian Johnson. He's okay. I do enjoy these Knives Out movies. I really enjoyed the first one. I mean, it had an all-star cast, which it seems like these Knives Out movies are going to be known for. I mean, in the first one, you have, of course, Daniel Craig, who's going to be in pretty much all of them, from what we understand. But you had, like, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Don Johnson, Michael Shannon, Toni Collette. You had a huge, huge cast of great characters. And you also had, I believe, Christopher Plummer in there as well. But you also have a huge ensemble cast in this one as well. I mean, you got Daniel Craig return as Benoit Blanc, which is such a great character we'll get into. You got Kate Hudson, Edward Norton, Leslie Odom Jr., Dave Bautista, Janelle Monáe, and Catherine Hahn as well, who I'm glad that she's really gotten a lot of recognition as an actress. She's been in a lot of stuff here as of recently. And I mean, going back to some of like the comedic days, as far as like, I believe she was in Step Brothers and she was like on Parks and Rec for a little bit. She's been in lots of other comedy stuff as well, but it seems like she's really getting recognized as a great actress here recently. And I like to see her in a lot of different stuff. I'm very interested in this series because it seems like they're just going to keep going until the wheels fall off at this point. Each movie is kind of like its own murder mystery in the vein of kind of like an Agatha Christie type novel in a way. The first one, I believe, it's been a while since I've seen it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the first one was originally like about like the death of like the patriarch of a family, and it had to do with like all the inheritance going to one of these the family members, and they were kind of fighting for control. And then there's like who did the murder, who committed the murder. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's definitely one I need to go back and rewatch here. I probably should have rewatched it going into this one, even though they don't really have anything to do with each other than just having that Benoit Blanc character connecting them. And it seems like he's going to be the one going forward. Like he's going to be the real constant through all these movies that are coming out. Because I mean, Rian Johnson, I mean, this movie just came out and he's already saying he's working on writing the third one here. And Netflix, apparently, when they bought the rights to like Knives Out, they bought the rights for 2 sequels, including this one. So we're definitely going to be getting Knives Out 3 at some point. But it seems like as long as Netflix keeps shelling out the money, because they pay like $450 million for this, outrageous. So I mean, and it seems like they're getting good reviews. I mean, the first one was critically acclaimed. This second one, it seems like people are really enjoying it a lot more than the first one, even though that was critically acclaimed as well. So I mean, I don't see them stopping with these anytime soon. It's like a completely different genre, but it's kind of this case with like John Wick. I feel like John Wick, they're going to keep doing those until the wheels fall off with that one as well. They found a system and they found something that works, and they're just going to keep doing it and kind of upping the ante each time. Now, I know a lot of people's real question about the title itself is like, what is a glass onion? Where it's like technically in the sense of the movie itself, it's pretty literal. There's a huge glass onion chilling on the top of Edward Norton's mansion in this, on his island. It's also derived from the Beatles song. I'm a huge Beatles fan, so instantly when they announced the title, I was like, I wonder if that had anything to do with the Beatles. And sure enough, it derives directly from that song, and they also use it in the credits as well. Where a glass onion, at least from what the Beatles song is referring to, is glass onion is like really, really looking into something that maybe isn't necessarily there, like looking for hidden meanings and certain things hidden in something that may not necessarily be there. In the sense of the Beatles song, the whole point of the Beatles song was they're name dropping different songs or album titles from their history and just kind of talking about how fans and everybody go through their lyrics and songs with under a microscope. They put them under a microscope to see and try to make up theories about stuff that isn't actually there itself. That was another reason why he wrote like I Am the Walrus at one point, because it's just gargled mess. It's not to be taken literally. There's not any sort of message in it. It's just John Lennon fucking with people when he wrote I Am a Walrus, and also kind of messing with people and that sort of thing when they wrote Glass Onion as well. They set the movie up as a typical murder mystery, just like the last one in a way, but they kind of do something a little different with it. They take it in different routes. Whereas in like the last one was surrounding a family, like I mentioned, this one, it's surrounding like a close group of friends, I guess you can call it. They're all friends. They know each other, they have a huge history together, but they all are involved with different things in the world. Like Edward Norton, you can very easily compare him to like an Elon Musk character. Dave Bautista is kind of like he's a Twitch streamer, I guess. He's kind of leaning more on the right wing side of things, promoting like different like testosterone and boner pills with like rhinoceros stuff in them, from what they're saying. You have Kate Hudson, who is like a former model who just keeps getting in trouble and getting canceled because she keeps going out and making racist remarks or anti-Semitic remarks or stuff, just posting dumb shit on Twitter. You have Catherine Hahn, who is like running for Senate, or she's just a politician. And then you have like Leslie Odom Jr., who's like he's like a scientist, and he works for like the company that Edward Norton runs, but they all have one thing in common, is that they are all kind of, and they mention it a bunch of different times in the movie, they're kind of suckling at the golden teat of Edward Norton's character in this. He's kind of supporting them in ways and kind of getting them out of trouble, but in return, as you're going to find out through the course of the movie, he's kind of throwing them out to dry as well. I mean, a huge part of the movie is Janelle Monáe's character. She was a part of this close-knit group of people. She was part of that inner circle with them until, something happened. She's the one that helped found the company with Edward Norton and everything, and then she ended up getting... she didn't like what direction he was going in, because he had a new process and a new thought and a new kind of invention of like renewable energy, a new source of renewable energy. And it wasn't exactly safe, and he wasn't really taking the proper precautions to make sure that it was safe. And she just wasn't down with it. And she resorts to leaving the company, and she takes him to courts because she wants half the money, because she was half the creator of the company. And then everybody else decides to take his side, because he's the one that kind of pulling the strings on everybody and can kind of ruin the careers of some of these other people. So they take his side, and she pretty much just gets fucked. She doesn't have anything. She's left on her own. So when she gets invited to this island, everybody's kind of surprised, like, why are you here? They even tell her at one point, like, why you shouldn't be here. Like, why are you here? Because they're her enemy at that point. They quickly made enemies of themselves to Janelle Monáe's character. But there's a huge twist throughout the movie here, and I really like the way that they went and with the twist in this character. But I really like the beginning of the movie, where you're really getting to know kind of these characters real quickly, at least the first four of the characters. You're really getting kind of back and forth with them. They're all being delivered these huge like puzzle boxes, which, man, I would love to have one of these puzzle boxes. They're just so like intricate and well designed, and they open up and turn and twist, and they're so cool how they were designed. And they're kind of helping each other solve the puzzle, because they all have the same puzzle over their phone. And you kind of get a sense of who each character is and what role they play, and how their little quirks and stuff like that, and their relationships with one another. I like Dave Bautista. I mean, he's like a rich Twitch streamer, but he's still living with his mom, and it gives me very strong like Will Ferrell from Wedding Crashers vibes. Like, Mom, the meatloaf.
That first one's a Fibonacci sequence.
Ma, the meatloaf.
But I liked his character in it as well. He's always carrying a pistol, which everything in this movie is here for a reason. And I definitely would like to go back and rewatch this for a second time, because as you see, like they did it with the first one, But as Benoit Blanc's character is putting everything together, you get flashbacks to like these little quick scenes that if you're paying close attention throughout, you would notice these things. Or they kind of tweak them a little bit because maybe you didn't remember them precisely. But I think this was a very well-written movie. I think it was put together very well. I believe it was close to 2.5 hours. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like I feel like it was very well paced. I was locked in the whole entire time because I was like, where is this going? Because all these people were invited by Edward Norton to this island because apparently every year he sends them an elaborate invitation to get them to the island and they hang out and have a weekend of it. But this specific thing, the reason he's inviting them all over to celebrate their friendship, but also to solve his murder. It's going to be a murder mystery on the island that they're going to have, and Edward Norton has an elaborate plan to help to have them solve a murder mystery and everything. And Benoit Blanc, he gets a package in the mail as well, and I like his introduction in the movie because, I mean, Knives Out, I mean, since the first one came out, Among Us has been such a huge game, and it's so funny to see Benoit Blanc just kind of, he's going through it. He's kind of in a rut because this whole movie takes place over the course of the pandemic in 2020. Everybody's talking about like COVID. Everybody has masks on, but he's really doesn't have any work to do. He's just kind of sitting at home when he's used to going out and solving cases. He's one of the world's greatest detectives, and it's funny because he's sitting in the bathtub with his computer playing Among Us, and he sucks. He's terrible at Among Us, and you get a lot of celebrity cameos in this. You get Angela Lansbury, you get like Natasha Lyonne, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's a couple other ones in there as well, but he's playing with some of these famous people, and he's terrible at Among Us. And it's so funny because as later when he's trying to solve the case and everything, someone brings up like it's like Clue, and he's like, Clue. He's like, it's not like Clue. Clue's a terrible game.
You must be really great at Clue, huh?
I'm very bad at dumb things. My Achilles heel. Ticking boxes, running around, searching all the rooms. It's just a terrible, terrible game.
It's so funny that this world's greatest detective is not great at all at these detective games. It's so funny to me. But he receives this package and he decides, okay, I'll go on this trip, and they go to Greece. He meets up with everybody. Everybody's kind of curious why Benoit Blanc's there. I guess he's there to help solve the murder. But even when they get to the island, Edward Norton he's curious, like, why are you here? I didn't invite you. And they go through a whole process of, well, how did you receive this box? I only had 5 made, very custom design. And he's like, but how did you receive one? I didn't send one to you. It does a great job of bringing questions to the table, and then it does a very good job, I think, of answering these questions, and of course introducing the twist, which kind of shakes things up as well. And there's a couple little funny things in here that don't really have a huge part to the story. On this island, which is inhabited by really nobody, because I guess Edward Norton sent all the help home. It's just him and his friends here on this island in this huge mansion, and he's just so ridiculously rich that he just can do stuff just to do them. He has this huge, like, one of a kind, this beautiful one of a kind car that he has, and he literally takes it everywhere with him. He has it sitting just on a spinning pedestal on the top of his roof of this mansion, and he's like, why is it on the roof? And he's like, well, I can't drive it on the island. So, I mean, he literally just pays to take this car anywhere he goes. On the island, there's this dong. Every hour, you hear a huge, like, bell, like a dong, and that's just the dong of the hour, the ring in the hour. And I thought that was going to have some form of significance through the rest of the movie. Like, I thought it was going to come into play at some point, but no, you only really hear it like once or twice. I thought they were going to incorporate that more into the movie since they introduced it, but I guess it was just kind of something weird and funny to throw in. Another little thing that's kind of weird and funny to throw in was the character of Daryl, which is just like this kind of just chill dude that Edward Norton knows he's going through a rough patch in his life, so he just let him chill and stay on his island for a while. And every so often through the course of this movie, you'll just see Daryl just kind of hanging out in the background or walking across just with a bowl of cereal or something, just kind of chilling, hanging out. He'll say hi to a character or something and then leave. At one point in the movie, when one of the characters is running around, he runs into a room and Daryl's just kind of chilling, and it looks like a kind of a stoner room. He's just kind of chilling. He's like, hey, what's going on? Want to hang out? I'm good. But I mean, just low-key, Daryl was one of my favorite characters, and you don't even really see him that much in the movie, but he's such a funny character every time you see him. Now for the kind of the twist in the movie itself. So all these characters are on this island. They're getting to know each other. It seems like there's some tension between some of them, especially like Janelle Monáe's character, because she was the one that was gypped out of her half of the company and everything. She ends up kind of having a run-in with Edward Norton and a couple of these other characters. She tells them off at certain points. Another thing why Edward Norton is ridiculously rich and he can do anything he wants, he literally has the Mona Lisa, the official Mona Lisa, in his house, and it's like it's under a super special security where there's like any loud noise or if anybody gets close to it, this glass goes up to protect it immediately. But the reason he has it, I guess he kind of bailed out the Louvre, and as far as compensation, he wanted to hold on to the Mona Lisa for a while. His whole life, he wanted to be mentioned within the same breath as the Mona Lisa. He wanted to have such a huge impact in the world that his name is mentioned within like the same breath as Mona Lisa, I guess. But that comes into play eventually as well. And another part of it is he has the whole island running and powered by this new source of renewable energy. It looks like this little crystal, but he's powering his whole island and everything with this new renewable energy. And it wasn't tested enough because they thought that there was like this gas in it, or I forget exactly what it was, but it could blow the whole fucking house up. And if this whole thing gets pushed out, to be regulated within the states and everything, it could cause huge destruction if it goes wrong. It could be blowing people's houses up and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely not safe. That's part of the reason why Janelle Monáe's character backed out of the company to begin with. And Edward Norton, he just keeps going further and further with it because this is his passion project. This is the thing that he thinks is going to put him on the map as the biggest thing fucking since sliced bread, pretty much. And even his scientist, Leslie Odom Jr., in the beginning of the movie saying, this isn't ready to be rolled out. And even whenever Edward Norton tells him, look around, this whole place is powered on, it's like, you're insane. This has not been tested. You can't be doing this. I understand this is important to you, but you got to go through the checks and balances. You got to have everything tested and approved. You can't just throw it out there. But that comes up huge later in the movie as well. Now, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, may want to stop watching at this, because we got to start talking about the twist here, because it's harder to go more in depth into the story without talking about the twist. So the twist, as I mentioned, with Janelle Monáe's character, she was the one that got gypped out of everything, and the whole thing revolves around this napkin, which the original idea of the company and everything was written down and jotted on, and the whole company was planned out, and the idea was written on this napkin by Janelle Monáe, and she's the one that brought it to Edward Norton's character, and they're the one that partnered up to make it happen. Well, when everything went wrong and they went to court, she couldn't find the napkin. She thought he stole it, and without it, she doesn't have any proof that she's the one that created it, unless everybody came to her side and, fessed up for it. But everyone went to Edward Norton's side because he was the one with the golden teat everyone was suckling on. He was the one that was kind of controlling everybody, so they had to side with him, and that's what got gypped out. Well, she ended up finding her napkin with the plans and everything she wrote on it, and it's so important because it was originally drafted at the old bar that they used to go to called the Glass Onion when they were younger, and that bar has since been closed. You can't find anything on it, and it means a lot because the napkin she drawn it on was a Glass Onion napkin from the bar, which the replica he made didn't have on it, because he said, I'm the one that did it. I'm the one that wrote the napkin. It was all on me. But she found the original, and she put it in this red envelope and sent an email to everybody I have the proof. We can end them. We all have to do this together. And then she turns up dying. She turns up dead at her house. Her twin sister, and this is where it's I like the way that they went with it, and I liked how the story went from there. But the cliche, twin sister or twin sibling, I can definitely understand why this may not have worked for certain people and why it did for some, because it is very cliche to just, I have a twin sibling now. But I think this worked in the context of the movie. But her twin sister feels that it was one of these people. She feels like it was one of that inner circle or Edward Norton that did this. And before she ended up dying, her sister, she ended up getting one of those boxes. She was invited to the island. Her sister gets the box, takes it to Benoit Blanc, and they form this plan to go to the island. She's going to pretend to be her sister since she knows pretty much everything about her sister because her sister has kept a diary since she was like 8 years old or something of just everything. So she has all this knowledge that her sister has and like these relationships with these certain people. So she knows exactly what to do, but it is going to be dangerous because one of these people on this island is going to know that she is dead, that she's supposed to be dead and that this is an imposter. So she has to be very careful with this. But her and Benoit Blanc form this plan to go to the island and find out who killed her sister and find the napkin and really take what was rightfully her sister's. And I think that was a very interesting plot to go in because you could have had just the general, murder mystery like you did in the last one. But this is kind of, it upped the stakes on the murder mystery as well. And I mean, you do have a murder mystery within a murder mystery here. You get the murder of her sister and you also get the murder of Dave Bautista's character who ends up getting poisoned with his drink, and he ends up dying like halfway through the movie. I just love how it's all settled, how it's all kind of put together, and you can kind of piece, and you're trying to figure out and piece it together as you're going. But really, whenever Daniel Craig, Benoit Blanc's character, puts it together, I just love these points in the movies where he's pointing out these different things that you may not have noticed through the whole thing, like when they're figuring out how Dave Bautista got that drink. And of course, it was Edward Norton. Edward Norton's the one that put this all together, which is kind of predictable in a way. As you're paying attention and as you're going through the movie, you can easily see how this could be Edward Norton's character doing all of this. And sure enough, it was. It was just a matter of how he did it, when he did it, and who helped him do it. So, I mean, the ending overall, like who did it and everything was very predictable. Whereas I feel like in Knives Out 1, it wasn't as much. But I don't think that really ruined the movie in any way for me. Other than being a little bit predictable, the ending was kind of, I wouldn't say anticlimactic, but you don't really, I mean, Edward Norton does get his comeuppance in a way. I mean, everybody turns on him, but he doesn't get arrested. You don't see him really get arrested or anything like that. Everybody's kind of like, when they're all gathered there at the end, I mean, everybody destroys the shit out of his mansion. They're smashing everything. They're fed up with his shit, but nobody really mentions that, like, oh, you're a murderer too. You're the one that actually not only like, I mean, they mention that he murdered her sister, but they don't really mention like, oh, you purposely murdered Dave Bautista's character as well. And that should be the most important thing out of this. Like, you're a murderer, dude. But they're like, oh yeah, I saw him burn the napkin and everything. But like, the first and foremost thing is like, this dude's a murderer. He killed 2 people now. Like, why? This should be the most important thing you should be talking about. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. What I really liked, like I mentioned before, if you went back and watched it a second time, I feel like you'd be able to notice some of these certain things as they're going on. And I think, and piece it together yourself. And I mean, even as the movie's going on, they cut back to certain things like, oh, you may have seen it, but did you really see the little details in this scene about like setting up for later? And they also kind of throw some curveballs at you as well. Before the twist, you think that Janelle Monáe's character is up to something. Maybe she would be the murderer or something. But you have little glimpses of these like of people running around the compound, like up to some shady antics and stuff. Dave Bautista's kind of hiding in the bushes, watching his girlfriend with Edward Norton through the window. You think certain characters are up to something, but overall, as you find out later, it's completely different. It's the exact opposite of what you initially thought. And I love how they kind of avert your expectations at certain parts and go in a whole different direction. Even though the ending, as far as like the killer and everything that was set up, is a little predictable, I feel like the story and how you got there, they did a very good job of averting expectations and going in one direction when you think they're going to be going in another. That's just class act writing. I mean, that's just great writing by Rian Johnson and team there, and great direction. I like the way that a lot of the shots were made. I think it was a decently funny movie too. There was a lot of pretty funny parts in the movie, especially with like how dumb some of these characters are at certain points. I mean, I think it's been a while since I've seen Kate Hudson in a movie, but she really did a great job in this. I mean, she does a great job of thinking of her character really thinks she's smarter than she actually is. And that's why she has an assistant here that kind of puts her in check at certain times and has her and keeps her phone on her. Like, all right, I got to approve certain tweets that you're sending out. I got to approve certain stuff that you're saying, because she gets herself into a lot of trouble at all. When this one was announced and the trailer came out, I wasn't super excited for it at all. I mean, I like a damn majority of the cast in this. I really do. I'm a pretty big fan of everybody in this. It just, I didn't have anything that was really drawing me into it. So I was like, I'll try it out. And we put it on. And overall, I really enjoyed this. I may have enjoyed this more than the first one, just of how it was really put together and how, like I mentioned, how it does a great job of averting your expectations. And I think they do a little bit more with the twist than I expected them to. It could have been as simple as, oh, she just has a twin sister, but they really dove into like, oh, she has the diary. That way she knows a lot of the information with these people and her connections with her. I really think they did a really good job of covering their tracks to make it all make sense going forward. That way there's not too many holes to kind of pick everything apart with. My only other real nitpick was Benoit Blanc, like Daniel Craig's character, didn't really have a whole lot to do at the end of the movie. I mean, he did put a majority of the pieces together, but when Edward Norton he lights that napkin on fire and he's like, well, you don't have any evidence. And nobody else saw the napkin here because everybody's siding with him. So he just kind of had him dead to rights there. Like Edward Norton, like, you don't have any evidence, man. You don't have any evidence against me. What are you going to do? And Benoit LeBlanc's like, well, I mean, that's the case. There's nothing more I can do here without any evidence. But he kind of slyly gives her like a little hint about what to do next and then pieces out for the rest of the movie. He's kind of chilling down by the docks waiting for the rescue boats. I wish that he would have had a lot more to do with that final act. They really wanted to give like Janelle Monáe's character, or the sister of the character, the spotlight at the end and really have her, take Edward Norton down and go out and destroy the place and really get her vengeance and her revenge in a way, which is okay. I understand the point of it. I just wish Daniel Craig would have had more to do at the very end of the movie. Another just point I wanted to hit before we go here. I loved, because Edward Norton, like I mentioned before, he's such a rich guy. He can buy whatever he wants. He had like a world famous like detective or like mystery writer write this fake murder mystery specifically for his like friends, and Benoit LeBlanc solves it in like 10 minutes and not even. As they're sitting at dinner and he's like explaining everything, he just comes out and like, well, this is going to happen. This happened, this happened, this happened, which would have been this person's fault. And this is the person that murdered you. And like, he literally solves it before it even starts. And I love it. It just, as it's bursting Edward Norton's bubble, it literally bursts his bubble because the fake arrow shoots out and hits him in the chest, and the squibs just shoot fake blood everywhere. And he's just so disappointed. But that had me rolling, bro. That was so funny. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I definitely want to give it a rewatch, and I definitely want to go back and give the first one a rewatch as well. Because at this point, I think I enjoyed the second one more than the first one, and the first one was really good in its own right as well. I think they, as far as great sequels go, I think they took what worked really well in the first one and they built upon that. You had a murder mystery within a murder mystery, and you had a decent, really good twist on top of it as well. I mean, I could see why people may not like this, but I feel like a vast majority of people would if you like the first one. And I feel like it's definitely anchored down by really, really, really great performances by damn near everybody in this cast. And I'm very eager to see what direction they go with the third one and what kind of a great ensemble cast they get for that third one, because that's going to really be the draw of what's going forward. I mean, you get Daniel Craig's like Benoit Blanc character going through these movies. That's kind of the anchor. And then you have each movie, you're going to get a huge ensemble cast of just great and amazing actors. I'm very interested to see what angle they go with going forward and how they're going to be able to keep the murder mystery fresh each and every time. Because I mean, so far they've done it really, really well. It's just a matter of how they're going to keep it fresh going forward. Because I feel like you can only get away with doing a murder mystery so many times until it really starts feeling the same and kind of copy and paste it every time. Out of a buy it, rent it, or miss it, I would say this would be a buy, man. I mean, this movie kind of, it's right in my wheelhouse because I I love murder mysteries in a way. I love kind of piecing everything together, and there's nothing better than having a detective or somebody that's trying to solve the mystery at the end of the movie, putting all the pieces together, and you're going back and seeing stuff that you may not have seen before. It's exciting, and it puts me on the edge of my seat. I was on the edge of my seat the whole movie trying to figure everything out and what direction they were going to go into next. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it for anybody that hasn't seen it as of yet. I definitely want to go back and watch the original Knives Out because I really want to compare the two now to see which one is my favorite. But as of right now, I think the second one is my favorite so far out of the series. But yeah, that is the show for this week. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go follow us on Twitter at Cinema Trip Views, on Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews, and pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts. We're pretty much available everywhere, so drop in and leave us a good review there. Next week on the show, we're going to be reviewing Friday the 13th, because next week, we get a Friday the 13th at the beginning of the year. So we're going to be talking, Alex is going to be joining me next week. We're going to be talking about Friday the 13th Part 1, maybe Part 2. We haven't really decided that yet, but we are definitely going to be talking about Friday the 13th Part 1 next week for Friday the 13th. And hopefully we can continue this talking about another Friday the 13th every time a Friday the 13th comes up. So be on the lookout for that. Throughout the year, we are going to be debuting a new show at some point with my buddy Vernon, who's been a part of some of the past reviews, if anybody's watched those. We have a new show planned for the channel, so be on the lookout for that as well. And I hope everybody had a great 2022, and I want to thank everybody for watching us in 2022 and supporting the channel, because we have a lot of great content coming up here in 2023. I hope everybody had a great new year, and we'll see everybody next week.